Houston Texans. Spoiler alert, I'm going to pick them to win this division. The 1-2 punch at edge with Will and DeMille is incredible. It really is. I said this to Will Anderson. I knew he'd be a good player. I had no idea he'd be this good. I didn't say Yaya Diaby. He was on the show, and he's fantastic. This dude's a 50-plus pressures a year guy. It's a powerful group. Like, they really, between Bain and him, pockets are going to be crushed. Pockets are going to look like crumpled paper bags. I trust Liam Cohen a lot as a play caller, as a coach. He is a stud. Welcome to the Southern Division Preview.
I do declare.
I do declare there's some fine teams in the South.
Being played in the South.
There's some bad football being played in the South as well. We'll go through it all today. We've also been to the South. We were just in Houston, Texas, where it was hot. Let me just tell you, that's not a made-up thing down there. It was like 9 in the morning. If you'd asked me what the heat index was, I'd have said 103, and suppose it was 88 degrees outside.
All right, I'm gonna take the off ramp and not do the feels like conversation.
You don't like I forgot about this thing. I wasn't trying to bait you.
And just ask, is this
bait you, dog?
Is this the wet hot? This is the wet hot.
Oh, it's wet hot.
It's not like the desert.
Yeah, no. It's like your scrote's underwater.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you're swimming through the air.
You're swimming, dude. It was a real training camp. We are going to talk about the AFC South first, but I want to go through our travels, man. We've been a lot of places in the past couple of days. Finally, I'm caught up on sleep. Had a day at home yesterday. Kids are back in school, which, boy, does that improve your mental health. Not that you don't love your kids. I love my kids.
Yeah, I know that.
I spend too much time with them when they're out of school. You know what I'm saying? Like, I try to spend every waking minute. So now they're back in school. It's great. So we went to, Detroit first?
We did Detroit. Bo had a stop in Philadelphia a couple days.
Bo's been earning that paycheck, dude.
I know. Bo was in Philly. Then he went to Tampa. You went to Detroit, had one of the best burgers of your life.
Miller's was great. This place called Miller's got no windows. No windows. Hard to find the door.
Yeah, barely a door.
They bring you out burgers on like wax paper.
No,
you don't have a plate, nothing.
Yeah.
They bring you pickles in a Ziploc bag, which is like great. I'm like, I hope they're not reusing these Ziploc
The only
bags.
Toppings were onions and pickles in a Ziploc that they dropped on your table.
So the burger's good, and it was. Had to have 2 of them things. We spent time in Detroit. Obviously went to Lions camp. Lions have been hit with a rash of injuries, man. And like there were some question marks on that roster to start with, but I guess Rakestraw is out for an extended period of time. They're going to depend on him this year.
He has a hard time staying healthy.
Yes, Laporta status uncertain for the season opener. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, but it just feels like they're dealing with it already there. There's a lot of reason to be excited about Detroit. They also have some holes that they're going to have to fill. But we love Detroit. They treated us great there. The fans are super cool. And the organization really rolls out the blue carpet for us, so to speak. We had Amon-Ra St. Brown, who was actually hilarious. He was hilarious.
He wasn't too complimentary of your position.
No, he claims that you'll hear this, and he claims that DN's the easiest position.
Just go.
What Hutch does is easy. He's great. Hutch was awesome. Goff was awesome. Goff was shoeless in the interview. He just walked in there like with dogs out. People have a problem with that, I'm sure.
But we got him a pair of canes.
We got him a pair of canes. We hooked everybody up, and then I went to Michigan practice to see Coach Hagens.
That was awesome.
And you're a Michigan guy.
Yeah, I'm a Michigan
I was
man.
blown away.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I was blown away. Ann Arbor really has it figured out.
You go to Zingerman's?
I didn't go anywhere.
Perfect.
But I saw everything driving through. And this isn't a football weekend or anything, but you can imagine what a football weekend's like there. It was great. But you walk in that facility, man, and and I'll go to Ohio State eventually. But the sign on the door to see our boy James Laurinaitis, I couldn't go to both in one summer. That feels a little bit wishy-washy. I got to pick one. But you walk in the facility and there's a sign that says no green, no red. I look down, I got green shoes on, but they're like army green, and you can see in the picture there's green in the camouflage shorts. And I was kind of nervous about that, but got to go out and watch them practice, and got to see the facility. The facility is unbelievable, as all these facilities are now, almost all of them. But you walk in and there's a hallway, and I got to see it at night, which was really cool. Like it was something out of a movie. Man, this fucking dart is
still
burning
lit,
like
right?
incense.
Yeah, still really lit. Couldn't be more lit.
Got to have 2 drags of a dart before you talk about the NFC South. But you walk in and there's this long hallway that it's got every. I'm gonna go ahead and move this thing.
Why don't you just put it out?
You're right.
That's great.
So I didn't go to Michigan, as you can see.
But they got a hallway named after you, huh?
Yeah, they do. Well, you walk in this hallway, and first they have the Jake Long.
Did you get it?
Yeah, it just wasn't that great. But you have the Jake Long. You have the Jake Long figurine, like the grayscale, mannequin with the 77, and you could tell they had Lawan was in 77. They got a kid now 77 who's clearly the stud up front. But you walk in this hallway and they have, and I don't get moved a lot, in a way that I get inspired. Maybe I'm dead inside at 41. But you walk into this facility and you feel something walking down this hallway. They have, and they're all grayscale or brown scale, kind of that old look, that sepia tone kind of portrait of dudes from leather helmets all the way up to Charles Woodson, Brandon Graham, to Blake Corum, and the hallway is 100 yards long. And so you can't help but feel that, and the tradition at this place, you just can't fake tradition. It's unbelievable. They got bowling alleys in the locker room. They have a barber shop, which is probably standard now. When you build a facility, you got to have all this stuff. But
is it connected to the big house?
It's right near the big house, and it's really cool. I got a tour of the big house, which was cool. I put that up there with seeing Lambeau empty. When you see a stadium empty, it's almost cooler in a way. And you walk down that hallway, and the hallway it's the original hallway that everybody has ever ran out of since the 1930s or something like that. And you're thinking Tom Brady walked down this hallway and the whole thing. So Kyle Whittingham, always one of my favorite coaches. Got a chance to meet him. He's a stud, really cool. And there's some New England guys there. Bears is there from New England. If Patriots fans know Bears, got to catch up with Bears for 35 minutes. So I don't know why I threw the 5 on the end, 30 minutes or so. But it was a great visit. Shout out to our boy Marcus Hagans.
Yeah. Are you rooting for the maize and blue?
Yeah. Fuck yeah, I'm rooting for the maize and blue. And then we wake up and head to Houston and go to Texans camp. And I'm going to talk about the Texans in a little bit. But I like the Texans and, love their defense and that sort of thing. But just to set the tone for this whole thing, we're going to start with the Jags, because they won the division, right? For fairness' sake, I didn't do that a couple weeks ago with the AFC North. I'll be better this time. Jags first, Texans second. I will say, and we have a really good rapport with the Texans media department and all that stuff, and they treat us real good. And we're kind of repeat customers this time, so we had good access. And driving through the bowels of that stadium, because they're one of the few teams that shares their facility with the stadium. It's like the stadium and the facility are kind of one in the same. And you're driving through there in the golf cart and seeing the guys. And it's a joint practice morning. They're playing the Raiders today. They're practicing against the Raiders today. And when you joint practice in the NFL, there's a certain je ne sais quoi, in the air, dude. It's an intensity. It's like people are coming to town. We get to hit somebody new. We want to show who the fuck we are. And driving through the hallway in the golf cart, passing the D coordinator, players walking out to practice, you can really sense the tone in that building. I felt like I was walking into some big bad motherfucker's house. And the looks on these guys' faces They mean business. They're big and they're bad and they know it. And a lot's going to come down to the offense, but there's an aura about that team right now and an aura about that defense for sure. And spending time with Will Anderson is incredible because he is just a bell cow for those guys.
SI cover boys.
Yes, and you could see, like, I get, the whole world's kind of catching up to this Houston Texans thing, but we'll see how they handle the pressure. It's a lot of fun watching those guys, and it was hot out there, like I said, and I got to see Brady. Tom Brady was there. I'm always shocked every time, A, he remembers me, B, that he would spend, 5 minutes kind of catching up. I really enjoyed seeing Tom and got to meet Andre Johnson. Never met him in my life. Probably the nicest guy I've ever met.
Cool.
A lot of Darren Sproles working with the running backs. Got to see him. So,
do you think that they airbrushed
yes,
any sort of
Yes.
shapes out of
yes,
the cover of
I do.
SI?
I do, because when you go Texas-sized goals right below the white pants, you want to make sure there's no double entendre there.
Yeah. Okay. What did you and Tom talk about?
Talked about what I'm doing there.
What are you doing here? Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
of
a good
course.
question.
Yeah, what the fuck are you
Yeah.
doing here? Talked about how his son's doing. Talked about the Raiders, and I think the feeling around the Raiders, not from talking to Tom, but from talking to other people, they're finally ripping the Band-Aid off and doing it right. So there's an excitement. It's a tempered excitement, but there's an excitement around the Raiders. And certainly for the other team that was hosting the Raiders, they have aspirations of winning the whole thing, and I don't blame them.
When I think of NRG Stadium, I think of section 552, I think it was.
When you're in the wrong spot.
It's so easy to get this wrong when you're in this space. All right, so you see this? I was meant to be in 552.
Yep.
I went up to 652 where I met the nice elderly couple from Maine.
Yeah.
Big Pats fans.
Yeah. That's the end of the story.
Had a few domestic light beers before the game started.
Yeah, you almost lost us the Super Bowl. Thank God you changed seats in the second half, 28-3.
28-3. No problem.
It was a great trip. We had a lot of fun. No shenanigans. We don't have any big stories. Just all ball. And so it's going to be all ball today. We're going to talk about the South. Shall we start with the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Can I say something?
Sure.
I know the Duval thing is pretty polarizing in this studio.
Yes.
It's kind of cool.
It is.
It's
a likable team.
And it's
Nate made them the villain last year. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But they're not the villain. They're a fun team. They're a well-coached team.
Very.
Well-coached team. They've got a lot to be excited about. Obviously, following a year where you win 13 games, not out of nowhere, but people aren't expecting you to win the division and that sort of thing. They do that. You can already tell, like Gladstone and company, the new GM, the babyface GM there, has taken some heat for, the way they've drafted. They went against a lot of the consensus picks. Like, they don't draft on consensus. They took that tight end in the second round, Nate Borkircher, who they actually like in camp and that sort of thing. But, if you were judging off of just what happened last year, you'd think, hey, there'd be no heat on the personnel department. There's a lot of reason to be excited. I think they have a bunch of picks this year. Like, there's going to be a lot of young players on this team that people are going to be watching. And obviously the Travis Hunter thing last year with the injuries and with the, like, hey, where do we line him up? That's kind of led a lot of people to question Gladstone and the personnel department. But there's a lot to be excited about also. So they only got 7 games out of their first 2 draft picks last year, with Hunter and Ransaw, and a lot of that was due to injury. So they can't control that. All they can do is line that Travis Hunter kid, who looks bigger this year, up in the secondary and just let him settle in, because I've maintained this since the beginning that he's got a way higher ceiling as a corner in this league than he does as a wide receiver. And I think rookie year probably confirms that. He'll be in some packages. But that's enough about all of that. Let's talk about the offense. I think on the bright side, when it comes to the personnel department, they nailed the trade last year, Jacoby Myers. That was like a force multiplier for them. Opened up the middle of the field. Losing Achan or ETN, for those of you guys who don't keep up with the name Olympics in the NFL, that's going to be the thing I'm watching this year. Because, listen, Tutin's a good player, and, I watched his whole run tape today, and, he's a guy who's got good vision. He can make good cuts. He can bounce the ball outside. But Achan was the kind of guy that you could toss the ball to. You could pin pull action, outside zone, stretch action, and he was a guy who really threatened the edge of the defense. Like, he's made to press the edge. That's his play style. Whether it's the one cut downhill off the edge, or he's actually getting out on the edge, that really helped them. And so how are they going to use Tutin? That to me is a big question mark. If you look at Liam Cohen in Tampa, and this is going to come up again when we talk about Tampa, a lot of mid-zone, inside zone, gap scheme stuff as the year went on, because they felt like those guys up front in Tampa were suited for gap scheme. We'll see kind of what he does with the run game this year. It's a big part of what they do, because they're gonna press the ball down the field. That's what they do. Trevor Lawrence has a big arm. He played some of his best football. It was like 2022-esque. I remember that was the year I think that he looked really good for them. And he looked that way again last year. And the run game was a big part of that, right? They were playing with a full deck, at the skill position, with Brian Thomas Jr., who definitely can improve, had some drops, that sort of thing. A lot of it seems mental. Jacoby Myers and Parker Washington was like a revelation for them. Bretton Strange is a guy they love. And you had the rookie second rounder at tight end that criticisms on how they came about the pick notwithstanding, he supposedly looked really good in camp. So, they have a multitude of weapons. They do. And if the quarterback plays well, you can make an argument for them winning this division again. The offensive line, they trade for Daniel Faalele. So congratulations, New York Giants fan Macon Gunner, because he's not on your team anymore. If you ask Ravens fans, he's like the worst football player ever. And I hate the fact that he's getting beat up so bad. I've seen like a few national shows just kind of, killing this guy. But he's not a great mover, unsurprisingly. He's a giant individual. But I also don't think you're going to have to play him. Like, if you're lucky, Jacksonville, I don't think you're going to have to lean on Daniel Faalele. I mean, I think this comes down to Makari's back surgery. I think this comes down to, maybe he's a depth piece for them. I think it'd be nice to see Wyatt Millum, the kid from West Virginia, who played a lot for them last year, without really being a starter. He's had to play guard. He's had to play some tackle. They really like him. I think he's a physical player. I think he's got a little edge to him. Tough player. You'd like to see him slot in there at guard. And I think Van Lannen's a really valuable piece. I think he was on PUP. I think he just got off PUP. He can play a bunch of different positions. So I wouldn't say it's a great unit. Like, I would say it's a pretty middling unit, but they have pretty good depth. And honestly, when you look at it from a standpoint of like how athletic the quarterback is, him being able to get out of trouble, that sort of thing, it's not the worst setup for Trevor Lawrence, and the fact they have all those weapons outside. So I do think the offensive line is at least solid. And remember, the run game is so important. So how they go about that and how they get into the play action pass structures is going to be a little bit of a we'll see when it comes to Liam Cohen. But I trust Liam Cohen a lot as a play caller, as a coach. He is a stud. So besides how the offense looks because of the back you have in the backfield, there's also the question of Tutin carrying the whole load. And, Chris Rodriguez backing him up, spelling him, like what's that going to look like? So I think Chris Rodriguez is kind of a hidden swing player for this offense for sure. When I look at this team, I do see a little bit of, I wouldn't say it's a sure thing that they're going to regress, but Vegas seems to think so. I think the win total's 8.5, 9.5 games, something like that. I think they're plus 220 to win the division. whereas the Texans are the favorite. I think when you look at the defense, there's more of a pronounced personnel drop-off. And there's some important positions that they're replacing that I think – and, Campanelli last year did a great job. I mean, he really did. One of the things you can't account for is the fact that they went from the the outhouse to the penthouse when it came to the turnover production defensively. I think they had single-digit turnovers in 2024. They created over 30 last year. So there's naturally going to be, a luck regression on the turnover deal in the NFL. And this isn't lazy analysis. It's just the way it usually goes is when you go from worst to first at something like turnovers, which are highly variable, you never know what the next year is going to yield. So I kind of look at the defense and saying, hey, are they going to be able to create those negatives or create those turnovers this season? They're replacing Lloyd, who's great in coverage in the middle of the field, like great length. When we were talking this week to Jared Goff about Jack Campbell and what it's like to have to throw around a guy that's got that kind of length, it really does factor in the middle of the field. And so, you're replacing a hell of a player in Lloyd, and then you've got a new starting safety where Antonio Johnson's going to play with Wingard leaving. Ransaw has no experience. You might have to play him. You're replacing Newsome, who's now a giant outside. But they've got a really good 1-2 punch at edge. I really love Josh Hines-Allen. I love Trayvon Walker. Eric Armstead, probably not he's probably not a power player anymore in the run game. He was never like a big space eater inside. He's more of an interior pressure guy. And so, in the run game, they played very well last year. They stopped the run really well. So, they did a good job. They played above expectation in that facet defensively last year. I think the irony of this team is 13-4 last year. I don't think they're great in the trenches. I think they have very good pieces at edge. But outside of that, when you add up the offensive line and the interior players in the run phase and in the pass phase, I don't think they're great in the trenches. But I think this team's got a healthy shot of winning the division. I do forecast a little bit of regression when it comes to the defense, and that second linebacker position is it's a question mark. You got guys like Ventrell Miller who are going to have to play. Dennis Gardeck, who's not as much of an off-ball linebacker. You look at the linebacking crew. Obviously, Olukin's a good player, but outside of him, there's a lot of uncertainty there. So interesting, very interesting group. Got a chance to have a good corner room if Travis Hunter can realize his potential, which I think he will. Monteric Brown at the other corner, and then Jordan Lewis was one of my favorite players in Dallas. Came over last year, so got a chance to be a good secondary. The safety room is a swing room for sure.
Cleveland's the opener, then it's Denver, New England, Cincy, Philly, Houston. Tough little stretch for the Jags.
That's right. If they can get to their bye week, you're looking at this. If they can get to their bye week, above 500, that would be a big win.
500, yeah.
500 would be a win too, because you said it. At Denver, at Cincy, New England, Philly, Houston. That's a tough. I mean, 4 out of the 5 out of 6 of those defenses are top 5 to 10 units.
And you can see 2 of those at 9:30 in the morning, so that means no real home field advantage.
They basically, and so you got two
They're
two
staying
home
there for
games
2 weeks
overseas, which is that's tough. Into the bye. Houston Texans. Spoiler alert, I'm going to pick them to win this division. So not to take away views from next week's show, but I'm an unapologetic fan of the Texans. I've been unapologetically pro-Texans for a couple years now. But I think, I said what I said about like walking around and feeling the vibe in that room. I've been on some good teams. It took me a long time, but I eventually got to feel what that feels like. And I feel like they know damn well they could have won the whole thing last year. and they've got this attitude this year where they know exactly who they are, and they are a bully. They are a bully. What they want to build is a bully offensively, because if they can build a bully offensively, if they can build a league average offense, they can win the Super Bowl. I'm very excited to watch this team play. Of course, Higgins goes down, and we saw that. I was talking to the owner. Somebody was like, "Hey, the owner wants to meet you. Cal McNair wants to meet you." I walk over and start talking to him, and then we're standing by the end zone, and
No
Higgins
way.
goes down, and I'm like, "Fuck! What? Like, I got to stop talking now." There was an awkward silence, and then it was like, "Hey, I got to go over here." So I had a first-hand view of that thing, and immediately you knew it wasn't good. And right before that, I'm talking to guys about how he's looked in camp, and he's looked good, and they're going to expect a lot out of him this season, and obviously they're not going to have him. So we can talk about the receivers, and we will, but I think it comes down to the O-line room and the running back room. I mean, listen, I can't tell you how beautiful. I harp on this drive. I've been harping on it for a year, but do you remember when they played Kansas City in 24 in the playoffs? And they've been in the divisional round for a couple of years now, but like they played Kansas City in the playoffs. They go out in the third quarter, they get the ball, and they don't give it back for like 10 minutes. It was this beautiful drive where Joe Mixon's the bell cow, and they're moving the ball down the field in chunks, and the run game's a big part of it. And that's who they could be, and obviously we didn't get to see that last year. And it manifests by them being in a lot of like must-pass situations, longer down and distance on third down, red zone. You think about that Denver game, Cowboy. We watched that Denver game, and I was on Houston, and I swear they should have won that game, but they couldn't finish in the red zone. And so these problems just came up again for them. And I'm not saying Woody Marks isn't a good player, or that Nick Chubb wasn't serviceable for them, but they're missing that bell cow. So they go out and get David Montgomery. And for a team that drafted well last year with Ursary at left tackle, he's going to be fine, right? Like, he might not be all world, but he's going to be a guy that can start for you for a while. I think a lot, this Rutledge kid from Georgia Tech, a lot rides
Big
on
Red.
him. And when you go to camp and you've been reading about the fact this guy's been fighting every All-Pro on the team, you kind of wonder what the All-Pros are going to have to say about it. And I got a chance to talk to Will and Aziz and these guys, and talk to a lot of the players on the team, and ask them about, like, what's this Rutledge guy about? And like, the defensive players love it. They love it. They weren't like, yeah, he needs to get it under control. They were like, this is the type of football that we play. Why wouldn't we want the offensive line to play the same way? We fight, and they have that swarm mentality on defense. Like, an offensive line that has guys like this that are kind of Velcro guys. I brought up Marshall Yonda to Aziz Alshire, and forgot, of course, that I'm much older, but he never played Marshall Yonda. But Marshall Yonda was a guy that, like, and Quentin Nelson was a guy they brought up. When he's on the field, you have to look over your shoulder at the pile. He's going to try to finish you. If you want to get off this guy and shed the blocker, like, you have to shed him all the way. And, there's a mental aspect to having a guy that's just going to try to get that last shove the entire game, especially in the middle of your offensive line. And he also looks very good as a football player in reaching people, getting up to the second level, his quickness, the whole thing. I think this guy could be a really important piece for them, and could kind of not just flip the culture, but kind of flip the run game a little bit. Now, they tried to put the fire out by adding Braden Smith to the equation as well. I think Braden Smith was talked about by Max Crosby as being one of the best players he's played against in pass protection. And, right now they're working through some combinations at right tackle. He's listed on some of the depth charts I'm seeing as the starting right tackle, but they also have Trent Brown. And, they've got Wyatt Teller, you walked by him the other day, he's big as a refrigerator. I mean, and the guy's had a great career. He has ticked down a little bit since maybe 23, but he's still got a high floor in the run game. So they added the attitude, they added some competency. They also love their tight end room. And I bring that up because, you think about losing a receiver like Higgins, and sure, they still have Tank Dell, and, they've got Nico Collins, who are both vertical element guys with different body types, different skill sets, which is a unique kind of pairing. But they can get into 13. They can get into 12. They love Foster Moreau. And they love Marlon Klein. This kid they got in the second round, he is a fucking ass kicker in an era where we don't have a lot of big tight ends that can block people. And you think about them getting in these multiple tight end sets and pounding the rock. I think it sets up well for them to kind of flip their identity a little bit. And David Montgomery, obviously, is a dude that, like, running duo, for instance, he was the best in the league, I think, last year running duo. 6.2 yards per play on 35 carries, best success rate and best EPA in the league running that concept. Again, I think back to that drive 2 years ago, and I said that's who they can be in crunch time. That doesn't mean, and I've gone this whole way without mentioning CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud looked awful at times late last year, and he's looked really bad at times over the last year and a half or whatever it is. But I will tell you, there was a time not too long ago where he was standing at midfield giving Caleb Williams advice. And a lot of people have made that to be like the punchline of a joke. And, Tanner's laughing. But when it happened, nobody was laughing. When it happened, people didn't really bat an eye at that because at that point, CJ Stroud was an ascending player. How things have changed very quickly. I think in the beginning, it was a personnel thing, and I totally understood the problems. And as time went on, and I understand, the tendency for it to become mental when, you're getting the pocket caved in on you and, you don't have anybody to throw to, but it became a mental thing with CJ Stroud. And so I could talk about all this, but if CJ Stroud doesn't take the next step, they'll be back where they were with an all-world defense and some pieces, but they won't be able to get out of the divisional round. So CJ Stroud has to get better. And I think about that game last year, again, to bring up Kansas City. This was last year's game. It was a primetime game late in the season. You remember they beat Kansas City at Arrowhead. I thought that was such a big moment for CJ Stroud. Obviously, that didn't stick, but he threw the ball really well, intermediate level, over the middle of the field, made some big boy throws. You can draw from performances like that. So, they're going to be better, and maybe they will look to replace Higgins with somebody in the trade market. Like, I don't know, there've probably been rumors already about who's available and that sort of thing. But I think you have an open window. You don't have a lot of holes on your team. You might as well go out and make a move. I really think this team's good enough to win a Super Bowl. So you got to go out and you got to make those moves. So we'll see what they do. But, like, you talk about the mental part of it with CJ Stroud. The haircut to me is that's case in point.
What about the gate? What about the gate? The walk-in?
I didn't see the gate. Pull up the gate. But we always talk about beard alterations, haircuts, sudden aesthetic changes as being that's an interesting thing.
That's how he walked into camp.
Maybe he was chafing. I don't know, bro. But this is like a Mason Graham walking, dude. Do you remember Mason Graham last year where everybody was like it kind of same looking kind of entrance, but it does. A lot of it comes down to CJ Stroud. But I think having Tank Dell and having Nico Collins and being able to access areas of the field because of play action with more ease, feeding these tight ends, whoever the wide receiver 3 is, when you get in 11 personnel sets, like the run game has to be a part of it. So
current free agent wide receivers available: Tyler Lockett, Brandon Cooks, both veterans that could maybe help that room. DeAndre Hopkins as well, maybe make a little homecoming.
I don't know if I would. I think I'd probably spend some resources trying to, what's Brandon Ayuk doing? No, but there are players that could be tradable assets. I mean, for some of these teams right now, you think about teams that might be taking a dive and before the trade deadline might dump somebody. But I don't know who that would be. But they're out there. They'll make themselves available. But you got to run the football.
Will you be on Texans plus 1.5 week 1 against the Buffalo Bills?
Two of my favorite teams. I think the Texans customarily have given the Bills hell. So if you're going to make a play, I would probably play the Texans there. But two of my favorite teams. You talk about the defense of this team. Listen, they're not real fucking complicated. They run a few things. They're going to let the big dogs eat up front. And, I talked to Azeez Al-Shire about this. I said, hey, man, everybody kind of looks at you guys and thinks it's a simple defense, and it might have some people conflating the defense being simple with it being an easy defense to run, and that's not the case, because to run a defense is simple. You have to have the best players on the planet, and they do right now. I mean, the 1-2 punch at edge with Will and Danielle is incredible. It really is. I said this to Will Anderson. I knew he'd be a good player. I had no idea he'd be this good. I watched his sack reel, his highlights a couple nights ago. He has got the ability to run his feet on contact in pass rush part of his game as good as anybody. It's almost like he speeds up when he makes contact with an offensive lineman. He is a track rusher that it's a car crash every time he engages with somebody, and just incredible balance, playmaking ability, finishing ability, just as good in the run game, which makes him a rare asset, in that regard. And I think when you walk around and you talk to people about Will Anderson, and the people on the staff and the media relations and other players, like they're all enamored with him, because he just walked in right away and was the standard setter on a defense this great. And it's early to have these conversations, but if he continues his development and plays like he plays, he's a Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Fame type player. The night is young, right? But like when you look back at some of the best defenses that are noteworthy 2 decades later, you say, whether they get a ring or not, like I remember that Texans defense. That was incredible. He's the bell cow. He's the guy. And sure, they got Stingley, and sure they got Hunter, and they got Al-Shire, and they have a number of great players, Petrie in the slot, and Lassiter. They have a bunch of studs. But the guy that stands out is Will Anderson, and it helps when your best player is also your standard setter. I mean, he really is. So they've got the culture. Your best bet if you're playing them is to try to run gap scheme shit really well and stay out of third down, third and long if you can. Good luck, because it kind of reminds me of, like, when you're online now and you see all these stupid posts where they're like, you have to fight one of these animals to survive. Pick which one. And it's like polar bear, a crocodile, a grizzly bear, a great white shark. And you're like, there's no fucking good answer, dude. Like, this is stupid. It's the same thing when you line up and you play the Texans. It's like you look outside, you have as good a 1-2 punch at corner as there probably is in the league. I know Philly fans are going to say, hey, Philly, but I'm talking about outside corners. People in Indy might say, hey, it's Sauce Gardner and Ward, but they didn't play together a bunch last year. I think this is an incredible 1-2 punch outside. So you might try to work the middle of the field, and you got Petrie in there, you've got Al-Shire in there, you got To'oto. You want to run the ball inside, good luck. Again, your best bet with an attacking front is to be able to run gap scheme really well. You got to have a great quick game to beat these guys. There's not a lot of teams. It's a pick your poison situation. So, and I think also adding Reed Blankenship helps. You kind of you bolster the safety room. And another thing is, like, I found this out late in my career. Having been on a Super Bowl team and showing up somewhere in free agency, like, I don't care who you are, they're going to pick your brain about what it takes. And this team's kind of looked up at a glass ceiling the past couple of years and have kind of wondered, like, can we punch through this thing? Reed Blankenship is the guy that everybody's going to be saying, what does it take, Reed? And there is value in that. And so, you've got a guy with championship DNA who's also very physical. There's going to be even more car crashes out there on the field because of Reed Blankenship. But again, don't mistake simplicity for ease of operation. This is as good a collection of players on a side of the ball as there is in the NFL. And I think they're going to be very good.
20 different starting O-lines for CJ Stroud since he was drafted. Can a new one work right away? As long as the pocket's clean, he's good. He doesn't need to have time to gel with a new offensive line as long as it's performing.
I think that's right. I think that's right. I think that naturally you're gonna need to get it down with the group that's in front of him, but like this is gonna feel very good for him compared to what he's used to. And I can remember when Titus Howard like fumbled the ball back to CJ Stroud, and you're like, how low can the floor be? Titus Howard's a good player. He made a bunch of money with Cleveland, but like over the last couple of years, like it's like no matter who they plugged in there, it went to shit. And so I think just here's the interesting part. I talk about it being mental. Isn't it crazy that like the fortunes of a franchise, all these people pulling in the same direction, kind of rest between the ears of a young kid, because that's what he is. And like I think back to being a player and think about like how you're where you are mentally on and off the field is so central to like how you show up to work every day and play. Like that's the thing that you just never know about, like what's going on in that locker room, what are guys going through when it's the quarterback who seems like he's going through it a little bit mentally. Like, and I'm not trying to play sports psychiatrist here, but it's pretty clear at times that there were mental problems. And so I talked to the defense about that. How do you pour into CJ and rally around him and that sort of thing? Because the playoff game was rough. But he's got to get that out of his head. And I think sometimes in the NFL, it can help a guy to hit rock bottom, to die, right? Not in a literal sense, obviously, but like in a sense of like, hey, I know what it feels like to fall flat on my face now. What else is there to be afraid of? And I think for CJ Stroud, I hope at least he's realized that, hey, I'm still here. I still got a shot. Couldn't be any worse than last year, and they surrounded me with more talent. So we shall see. The Colts, man, your guy, Danny Dimes.
He's back.
He's back, which, when you tear your Achilles that late in the season, there's just no guarantee that you're going to be the same next year. And I think that's the biggest concern for me. Like, there are holes that I worry about on this team and that sort of thing. And, they outperformed expectation last year. They got a great play calling head coach. Like you talk about Keenan Allen in a second. Like Keenan Allen based a lot of why he came to Indy on Steichen's play calling ability. He called him a genius. So, I mean, Daniel Jones off the Achilles is a big question mark. Especially considering like the guys that we've seen lately come off Achilles, it hasn't been pretty at quarterback. Now, albeit it was like old Kirk Cousins and old 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers, but Danny Dimes, his athleticism is a part of his game. Like he's low key. I mean, everybody remembers him tripping and falling, in prime time against, I forget who it was. Maybe it was the Eagles. It was Giants tape from a couple years ago where he's out in the open field and he falls flat on his face. I think people remember that, but he is a good scrambling quarterback, and there are things you can do to move the pocket and vary his launch points. So I think that's a big one. And like, if he's still kind of working back into it at the start of the season, they're going to have to run the ball. I think this is a run first offense. It should be, in my opinion, because you have continuity up front. You got a lot of the same guys back, and you have Jonathan Taylor, who's going to get a heavy workload. Of course, he had a very heavy workload last year. We'll see how he rebounds from that. I think leaning into 12 personnel, getting those big tight ends on the field. Obviously, Tyler Warren has a groin injury. I don't think that's going to be a long-term thing, but something to monitor. He is a stud, and he's a force multiplier. So, while you lost Pittman, and he's really going to help Pittsburgh, and there are areas of the field where he does dirty work, I think you can get some of that back with the big bodies, at tight end and Tyler and Allie Cox, who
Big Mo.
So, I mean, Jalen Travis, the most inexperienced guy on the offensive line, but he has some experience, right? So it's the same crew. And Josh Downs has got to have a big year. I think one of the biggest questions I have is like, Alec Pierce has been a home run ball guy. He's not getting a ton of touches for how much he just got paid, but all his touches are explosive. Pittman was more of a dirty work guy. Now your best player outside, you've got to – are you going to be forcing him the ball more? Is it going to be a more evenly distributed offense from a workload standpoint, is his bag big enough that he can be your guy? You know, like a lot of people think about the vertical element in his game, but I know he's opened his bag up a little bit as his career's gone on. That's going to be a big question for me. I think Keenan Allen really will help them. I don't think it's a throw-in. I think Keenan Allen, and I almost suspect this is something that was in the works for a while, and he just wanted to miss camp for a little bit. But Keenan Allen is going to help them in the short areas and on money downs. So, you know, you do have some weapons outside. I'm curious what that's going to look like as far as, I mean, I don't think I can really depend on Ashton Doolin to be a great wide receiver 3. That group, they have Pierce, Downs, Keenan Allen, varied skill sets, and all productive players. So those are your guys. You're an injury outside away from it being a little bit of an issue, but I think it's a run-first football team.
And Alec Pierce currently DUP.
Yeah, coming off an injury.
Yep.
So, you know, coming out of the gates, I think they got to be real careful about how they play football. You know, I don't want to see a pass-first offense. I want to see a run-first offense. I do.
And Rappaport said this morning Warren expected to miss a week. So
yeah,
should be.
You got to be careful with the groins because they can stay a problem. But I think he's probably fine without knowing much about it.
With Keenan Allen, if he has 50 receptions this season, he could move into moved to third place of all-time wide receiver receptions.
That's wild.
In the NFL.
That's wild. He's had
crazy?
an amazing career. I remember when he was on a visit in St. Louis, and by the grace of God for him, we didn't pick him. But I remember running into him in the cafeteria, and now it's just crazy to think like those guys are now record holders, and he's had this amazing career. So, again, I think Steichen's a hell of a football coach. He's a great play caller. He's also kind of been saddled with, you know, a lot of uncertainty at quarterback throughout his tenure there. And so, you know, I don't know if this is a make or break year for him, but it definitely is for the GM, for Ballard. It's put up or shut up time for this group. And it's a shame because, you know, last year, if Dimes was healthy, you know, they were making moves like they were a contender. You know, they went out and got Sauce and you know, you kind of throw in the kitchen sink at it. But this offense has a chance to be pretty good. But it's one of those, like, everything has to go right kind of situations, and starting with the quarterback. So defensively, I think it all comes down to the middle of the field. Like, you're replacing your green dot guy in Zaire Franklin. I know, you know, you let guys walk for a reason and that sort of thing, and he's older. But, you know, you look in the middle of the field here. You know, they're going to be starting a third rounder at safety. You've got a lot of – I mean, Davis Gaither's a guy that Lou Anarumo brought over, but I wouldn't say he's like a great player. CJ Allen, second rounder, he's got to play well. Not only are you replacing the communicator in this defense, but you're also replacing a lot of production. And so in the middle of the field, I'm kind of curious about this team. I think Cam Bynum's a hell of a player. Sauce Gardner and Ward, again, they barely got to play with each other last year. I look forward to seeing them being on the field at the same time. And Cam Taylor-Britt comes over. He was an embattled kind of guy in Cincy. You hope he doesn't have to play in the slot or anything like that, but he's mostly been an outside corner. So, I mean, I guess depth in the slot is a concern with Wally starting out as a second-year player. Up front, man, I think Arden Key's going to help him. I really like Arden Key. You know, obviously Latu, a great technician, Grover Stewart, DeForest Buckner. When it comes to coverage, your rushing coverage, like you've got a very good defensive line, a good starting four, and you've got a really good 1-2 punch outside. So, you know, when they get in these situations where they want to run man coverage, they have a chance to be very good out there doing it. And I think Arden Key has been one of the most underrated rotational rushers in the league. There was a kid from Ohio State who made a lot of noise for them in defensive end, made a lot of noise for them in the preseason, Caden Curry. And, you know, he's a 6th-round pick, but somebody keep your eye on. He was very active in that. I think somebody called him the third Bosa brother. I think that's racial profiling there, but it's good racial profiling. But I kind of look at that, and the depth. You've got some young players that you're going to have to depend on depth-wise. Michael Clemens is a good player, but who are your real bucket getters outside if anybody goes down at edge? I'm not really sure. So depth is a bit of a concern there. But yeah, Lou Anarumo can cover up for a lot of personnel deficiencies, and he can also do a lot because of who he has outside at corner. But I do worry about the communication on this defense and the middle of the field. Cane footwear has changed my life. I don't like tying my shoes. I don't like bending over to tie my shoes. I don't like wearing different pairs of shoes. I like to slip the same thing on every day. To just get out of bed and slide on a pair of Canes. It changed my life. I wear them everywhere. They're great on the river. I wear them on the river all the time. They get the holes in them, so you get the water flow. You don't have to worry about packing a pair of socks. You can just, hey, I'm rocking my Canes, man. And people always love them. People are like, what are those? At the beginning, they were like, what are those? But now they're like, those are Canes, because Canes have really taken off. There are other products in this category that are close, but they're not actually even close. They got the right idea, but the wrong execution. Canes are perfectly executed footwear, man. They got the support, they have the breathability, they have the ease of wearing, they have the ease of putting them on. They're waterproof, they're stylish. Everybody loves them. NFL athletes are wearing these shoes around training camp. Cane footwear is an active recovery footwear brand. The shoes are designed to give your feet, ankles, knees a break while continuing to go about your day, and they are perfect. I want more Canes. I need to get more Canes. They're replacing shoes for me. So anyways, let's continue this trip through the South with the Tennessee Titans. I was on this train. I'm on the Ward train. I love this kid. Love everything about him. Took the long way. Seems to be an adult. He takes big chances. He's tough. Sometimes he takes too many big chances. When we went there last year, Borgonzi compared him to a lot of the guys said he's got a little Mahomes in him. And honestly, when you see him do some of the rare things with arm angles and that sort of thing, and the way he sees the game, evidently, you see that. I'm not saying he's Mahomes, but usually I'd laugh at a comparison like that. But standing there at practice and watching him operate, I could see what they were talking about. Now they go out and they get Carnell Tate, who if you're an Ohio State wide receiver, the hit rate on that's very high. He supposedly looks very good in camp. He's your number one receiver, right? So a lot rides on him. Wan'Dale Robinson had a really good year last year. They take a swing at a guy off a career year in Wan'Dale Robinson, so you hope he can keep that up. Calvin Ridley is probably best suited being a 2. I mean, definitely best suited being a 2. There's been too much asked of him at points post Atlanta. I think the big problem with this group is, and obviously DK's a good player for them. They've got 2 4th-rounders from last year in Iomanner and DK. So they've got some good depth there. But the offensive line scares the living shit out of me. It does. Because there's nobody that wants to see Cam Ward succeed more than me, except maybe Brian Daboll. I mean, Brian Daboll, he's had an offensive line that's probably worse than this offensive line in 2023. You remember that offensive line in New York? Mm-hmm. And maybe you can kind of look back and be like, hey, what could I have done better to protect my quarterback, in a year where we gave up 80 sacks, dude, which is just unbelievable. I don't know if this offensive line is that bad, but I will tell you the Dan Moore experiment has not been a good one. Your right guard wasn't good enough to play in Cincy, okay? And Austin Schlottman comes over from New York. Skoronski's a good player. Latham's been fine. But it just – there's a lot of uncertainty here. And, when you look at, okay, was there anybody that can push the left tackle or the right tackle? Well, whenever I see Austin Deculus pop up, I'm not real excited. So there's there's an issue up front, and I don't know if Cam Ward is going to get that full look that you were hoping to see this year. But I will say the weapons outside are good. This is a team that's going to live in 11 personnel. Dayball can spread you out. You know, you can get the RPOs going, screen game, all that stuff. I think the number one objective for him this year is to get the ball out of Cam Ward's hands fast. And to have a partner in this thing in Brian Dayball that every day is kind of pushing you in a way that I know Coach Dave's. Like, he can be a motherfucker. I think Cam Ward's going to respond really well to that. He seems like a guy who's got it between the ears, and he's got the arm to make any throw on the field. And sure, he can make the magic happen, but let's stop majoring in the magic, and let's lighten some of these boxes. How they run into light box. Last year, I think they faced a top 5 amount of heavy boxes, which is no surprise. Pollard still was very productive. He's also a good receiver. They got Spears. I like Gunnar Helm a lot. It's his second year. You know, they bring over your guy Bellinger from New York. So it's not the worst offense. If they were playing 7-on-7, I'd be like, hey, this team's pretty good. I don't know what it's going to look like with this offensive line. Their best bet is to affect the box counts and run into them and keep the pressure off of Cam Ward. But it's going to take timing throws, scheming people up, and the quarterback has to take a jump. I love the quarterback, but he's got to take a jump.
If Carnell Tate catches everything, but he's not really a separator, would you have gone? By all accounts, that's the case. Would you have gone offensive line at 4?
This is the old Cincinnati thing where there's a crossroad where everybody says, hey, are you going to do Sewell or are you going to do Chase? And Chase is a Hall of Fame talent, so they hit it out of the park. And still they're in a funky position because maybe they pick Sewell and things are different, but it'd definitely be better up front. I think Cam Ward is a sturdy guy, and I think he can get himself out of trouble. But you are playing with fire doing this. Now, the reason I like a guy who can catch everything that's thrown his way is, you know, Cam Ward's going to be able to access any area of the field, and this guy's, you know, long and can track the football. He's going to catch 50-50 balls. So from that standpoint, I like it, but it feels like every time there's a crossroads and somebody picks the skill position over the big guy, we're still talking about it years later. I hope that's not the case with Cam Ward, because I do think they're probably a draft away. That's the good news. This team's a draft away. Like, we're going to go over to the defensive side of the football. I think there's a lot of good stuff going on the defensive side of the football.
I think there's an O-lineman on the roster. He's a rookie, Pat Coogan, Indiana.
Okay.
He'll turn 24 this season. Can probably play at least 3 positions.
6-rounder.
Indiana, just an old man. In a younger man's body.
No question.
But can play
That's
forever.
how I used to describe you.
That's how many still do.
Now you're an old man in an old man's body. So we look at the defense. Robert Saleh, I mean, like, I'm just such a huge fan of this guy. This guy's so well respected. This dude, like, when the Jets canned him, everybody was like, fuck the Jets, man. Like, you know, of course, that's the least likable entity and one of the most likable coordinators in the NFL. I just think back to him being like pushing a shopping cart through like the supermarket parking lot, and it was like week 13 or something, and he's just pushing a shopping cart, and you're like, this guy should have a fucking job right now. It's not his fault. And of course, he goes to San Francisco last year, and he's awesome. And honestly, when you look at what they were able to get done with who they had up front, it was nothing short of remarkable, because, you know, with the stars they had hurt, and of course that's business as usual in San Francisco, he was able to be pretty competitive with the guys he had on the back end. And he had a good group on the back end for sure, a lot of young players, but you know, this is a better group up front. Like, I like this group up front. Like John Franklin Myers, you look at the way the guys in Denver talk about him leaving. Jeffrey Simmons, maybe the best 3 technique in football right now. Jermaine Johnson, who I think is a very solid defensive end, like a real run and pass guy. And then, you know, Jacob Martin Jacob Martin did a good job in Washington. Like I remember he had some big games last year. Keldrick Falk is obviously going to factor in. He's your first-round pick, so you got a little bit of the rookie and the vet thing there. Keldrick Falk is an interesting body type. He's a sub-package guy on third down inside, but he might play some end. He's raw. He's young. But somebody's going to be happy if they can kind of develop him, because he's got a lot of talent in his body. Cedric Gray played well for them last year. You know, Barton's been there. Cedric Gray's a guy that they're going to want to see take that next step. I mean, he's been in the league now. This will be his third year, but I don't think anybody expected him to be as good as he was last year. So, you know, they also drafted Hill in the second. Linebacker core is an unfinished product, but it's trending in the right direction with Gray. And then Alontae Taylor's a guy that's played outside. He's played in the slot. He's going to play outside this year for them, and I think he's going to actually excel. I think Flott also had a very good season last year for the Giants. So it's the corner room has upside, dude. Corner room has upside, and I think it's just how you slot in the other guys. So again, like, good bones. I see them being a year away, and I really like Cam Ward, and I like some of the weapons he has outside, but I'm praying for my dog because I don't love the offensive line. But I do like Saleh. I think they're going to be aggressive. I think it's going to – I like this staff.
Saleh and Daves, man.
I think it's a good staff.
Good staff.
So if you're a Titans fan, like, hey, you're almost there. You're almost there. And a lot of that, to me, is like, I think you have the guy under center. In fact, I know you do. And if he doesn't work out there, he'll work out somewhere else, because I think there's a franchise quarterback in there. This is a scenario where KOC could be right, talking about, hey, more organizations fail young quarterbacks than the other way around. Like, I think he's got the talent. I question what they have up front right now. So, and that's the AFC South. One thing I've learned since retiring has been it's hard to keep your weight on. Like, it just, we work so hard as NFL players. I was training, hours a day, just to keep my strength up, just to keep my muscle mass up, to stay healthy. I don't have that kind of time anymore. I got 3 kids. I got a couple jobs. I just don't have that kind of time anymore. And my body can't take the beating that it used to in the weight room. So, to get the same amount out of workouts I used to do at 2x intensity, you need help. And for me, Create gummies have been that little boost. I started taking Create, and I really never took creatine when I played. After I played, I started taking it, and the easy use, obviously, just being able to pop them in, not have to mix powder in a shaker, that sort of thing, which, as y'all know, can be a pain. Oh, where's my shaker? I got no clean shakers. Oh no, I got nothing to mix it with. I gotta pack shakers on the road when I travel. No, I'm not gonna do that. I got my gummies, and I have noticed a big difference in the way I recover, the way I keep my muscle mass on. I feel like at this point, and maybe this is just something I made up in my head, but I feel like I look as good as I looked when I played sometimes. Like I'm almost 260 pounds. That was like almost my playing weight, and I'm leaner, and certainly I don't think I could take on a pulling guard, but I feel good. Like, nobody's looking at me at the beach and being like, what the happened to that guy? Nah, not with Create gummies. They're like, oh, that guy still trains. So definitely helps, like, keep the muscle mass on, keeps you looking, feeling good, and as important as anything is the cognitive benefits. Recovery takes longer in my 40s than it used to, for sure, especially in the summer when I'm depleted, dehydrated, the whole thing. I'm slamming water and I'm eating Create gummies. And so, you think about training camp. I kind of wish training camp time, I kind of wish I was taking Create in training camp back when I played, but it helps me now doing all the things I'm doing in retirement. So better late than never. I am loving creatine, and I'm loving Create gummies. It's NFC South time. The odds here, Tampa Bay is plus 180. Saints are plus 260. Panthers are plus 325. Falcons are plus 375. Is there a longer odds favorite in the NFL in a division.
Is there a tighter grouping? I'm surprised the Falcons have such good odds.
I know. Well, I'll tell you why. It's because there's talent on that team, but I don't think Vegas respects that quarterback room too much, in my humble opinion. But we will start with the Panthers, who are plus 325 to win the division. People might take that as disrespect. I certainly would, if it's not for what I'm about to tell you, because I love the short prints. But I'm a little worried about this because I'm just going to tell you what I think's going to happen. You know, and I know we weave in and out of like predictions here, and next week's the prediction show or whatever that's coming soon. But I think the O-line might sink this season, and I think it's unfortunate because they've at least taken the actions, but guys have just been getting hurt. Like, and at a point, it's Icky, it's Lewis, it's Corbett, Hunt, and it's Moton. Icky does his patellar in the playoffs, which is a bad one to come back from, especially at that point in the season. I just wouldn't count. I'm sure he's going to come back at some point, but like it's almost better for you to assume he's not going to be himself if and when he does. Moton's missing with a blood clot, so that's like a highly variable situation. It's not like an ankle sprain. It's a fucking blood clot. I don't know what's going on. My right tackle has a blood clot. My left tackle's patellar tendon is dangling off his kneecap. Like I got this guy Freeling who got worked by Rousseau in preseason, and you know Walker, who's probably a pretty average tackle, like not in a bad way. He's just probably more likely on a lot of teams the swing guy or a depth piece, but he's going to play tackle for you. Hunt barely played last year. You know, he was a big acquisition, and then you know, I think he tore his bicep or something like a couple games in the season, didn't come back to the playoffs. So no continuity. And for our diminutive QB, this is not good news. And I hate it because this is like a prove it year for him. Like they're going to decide on whether they're going to exercise his option or, you know, it's going to be one of these quarterbacks in the very deep, fabled 2027 quarterback class. So I hate this for Bryce, but I kind of feel like it sets up for a situation where he could rebound somewhere. Not to put him off the Panthers like right now, but I'm just telling you, when you look at this offensive line, it is going to be very hard for this group to operate. And I worry about it. And oh, you're an 11 personnel team. Okay. Time for Xavier Legette to take a fucking jump, dude. You can't be an 11 personnel team when one guy on the field isn't paying attention to details, doing the little things right. Forget like the big plays, like let's just do the little things right. You know, I have concerns about this. Now I like Jimmy Horn Jr., but if you're going to be an 11 personnel again, like you need your third receiver to be a good productive player. And beyond that, like it's not just like Xavier Legette's not been great. It's not just that. It's also that like the details have been getting lost on him. So, you know, obviously you've got Hubbard in the backfield and you can run the football, but you do lose Dowdle, and you know that does take a weapon off the. You're signing Darren Waller in camp. Like I don't know that Darren Waller's been anywhere that's gone well lately. You know, Tommy Tremble's a good, solid player. So not to be all doom and gloom because we're going to get the defense in a second. This team just won the division. And, you know, like I'm not going to count them out, but I am worried about this offensive line. I really am. And, you know, I think Canales is a good coach, as evidenced by how they played in the playoffs, man. Like they took the Rams to the doorstep. And honestly, if it's not for late game Matt Stafford heroics, like they're winning that game. Now, the great thing about playing in this division, and this goes for anybody in this division, is you're going to host a playoff game. Like some team that probably shouldn't host a playoff game will host a playoff game. And so it's all on the table for them. But I do have concerns up front. I don't know how many times I can say that.
They returned the Offensive Rookie of the Year, which only...
Ted McMillan's a beast. He's a beast. I like him. I like Coker. I'm going to be pulling for this group, but I feel like they're going to fail my boy. That's if I'm reading tarot cards right here, I don't feel good about it.
Maybe Freeling will be better than what he's shown so far.
It's his first game. right? But it's not just a, hey, you've got time to develop. Like, you're going to be people like Monroe Freeling, who's an enormous human being, ironically probably hard to see over. You got Luke Fortner at center. Like, these are the guys that you know, you're going to be dependent upon. Now, you know, I don't know if Sam Heck can push the center or what happens, but you know, this is it's a variable outcome situation because of what happens up front now. I hate to, like, hey, you've been waiting for this. If you're a Panthers fan, you're like, I wonder what they have to say. Not to give us too much credit, but, like, that's what I have to say about the offense. I can't sugarcoat my concern. Now you move over to defense. I think they added some star power. I really like the group. I think Jalen Phillips improves your defense. I think he's a pressure getter. I think when you look at having you know, a Devin Lloyd, we just talked about him in the AFC South portion with Jacksonville. What they're losing, they're gaining that, right? So that's big. Listen, I love J.C. Horn. I think Mike Jackson is as underrated a player as there is in the secondary in the NFL. Trayvon Moehrig, he's been great. You know, I think a loss of a guy like Nick Scorton, who I brought up a lot because I liked him off the bat. He played a lot of meaningful snaps for you last year, and now, like, Princely Umami-Yellen has to play well for them. Now, he put some good stuff on tape in that first preseason game, but it's a preseason game. So I do want to see him take that next step. He'll have to, because they have to replace, like, maybe not that top-end production from Scorton, but, like, you have to depend on – Scorton was a good all-around player for them last year. And then Wharton, I think he's hurt right now. Wharton's a guy that is a big swing player for them because he plays next to Derek Brown, and he had a really good run in Kansas City. He hasn't always been available for them. I think wasn't he hurt last year as well? So, you know, it's a good group. I think Ivero does enough with coverages to keep people on their toes. But I have concerns about some of the lack of pass rush, I guess, on the edge. And Jalen Phillips has primarily been a high pressure guy, which I think that's a great guy to have on your team, and he's going to force a lot of disruptions. He's going to miss plays that other people are going to clean up for him. I think he's a hell of a rusher. But I do have concerns about, like, who's the guy that gets home outside. Obviously Derek Brown's one of the best in the game and probably should be in that best interior defensive lineman conversation at the very least.
Haven't finished better than 25th in adjusted sack rate since 2021.
Right, and they're still chasing that. So really up front, it's a lot of young guys that are depth, but they're also probably going to be called upon to play. You know, whether it's Lee Hunter, you know, Cam Jackson, and I already mentioned Princely, but there's some young guys that they're going to depend on. And then, like the open job at linebackers, there's a competition between Trevin Wallace and Claudin Cherlis. So, Wallace played 12 games for them last year, didn't do enough to really be named the starter outright. And the slot corner position is kind of up for grabs. So, we keep throwing Kenny Moore's name out there. Wouldn't be the worst guy to kick the tires on. There are a couple holes on this defense, but I think they're a good defense. I think it's a good defense. They're going to have to play really well because at times, even Bryce would be really efficient and the numbers would be good and but they still weren't scoring more than 20 points in some of those spots where, you come out of a game and you're like, how'd Bryce play? And I'm like, hey, he played really well. I don't know what else he could have done, and they're scoring 20 points. All the games weren't like that, but some of the games were, and I feel like they're going to be in those spots again. You have to be able to run the ball into those lighter box counts if you can get those box counts lighter with the weapons you have outside. But it's going to take some tinkering.
You know what a bummer about finishing 8-9 and a tie for first, but winning the thing is the first place schedule the following year.
It's tough.
Third hardest.
in the league.
In the league.
And that's why you got to bank on the regression, man, which is unfortunate. But, before people are hitting me up week 11, like, you said Bryce was going to – I think Bryce is still a franchise quarterback. I think somebody in the National Football League, if they don't pick up his option, is gonna be happy to have him, and he's going to join a more complete program. But his job this year is obviously to win football games, but it's also, like, individually for him to play well enough that, like, no matter what happens to him, he's still got a home. And so, I hate to, like, doom and gloom it, but the injuries up front and more injuries will happen, right? And that's the thing. You see these injuries popping up in preseason for all these teams. It's not over yet. There's more of that coming, so especially on the offensive line.
Early bye week to week 5.
Not doing them a lot of favors, man.
And then after bye week at Philly, home Tampa, at Green Bay.
Not doing them a lot of favors, man. Not doing them a lot of favors. And you think about winning in this division now. I'm going to talk about the Falcons in a little bit. Their sack rate was up there, right? They were one of the best pass rushing teams in the league, and that was about bringing pressure and being multiple and all that stuff. You look at the Saints, like, they were a good defense last year. They were. Now they don't have a lot of the horses up front, but let's talk about the Bucs. Like, their front might be hell to deal with. So you're back in these, like, big games in December against, like, the Tampas of the world. Like, I don't love how you match up front. It's a tough place to be hurting for any team. So we'll talk about the Bucs next because they were close. Now, I picked the Bucs to win the division and go far last year. I really they fooled me. They fooled the hell out of me, and fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, you know the rest. Channeling my inner George W. Bush there, but they're not gonna. They are gonna fool me twice. I think Tampa looks good, man. Like, I can't help it. Like, when you look at this team on paper, what could sink it? Injuries could sink it again, and Todd Bowles could sink it. Like, I go back and forth on, hey, Todd Bowles does a great thing, Todd Bowles does a bad thing. Like, just pick one, man. Like, and I think this is a desperate team, right? So, like, that's the thing. Last year was rough. They were a hair away from being, like, 3-14. All their wins early in the season came down to the final drive. Like, and there were some marquee wins, like going to Seattle and making Seattle's defense look like that. That's who this group could be.
Started 6-2.
That's who this group could be, what you saw in Seattle, because they go 3 deep at wide receiver. They really go 4 deep, right? Because you got Tez out there who they really like, but with
and Ted Hurst.
Flyer
on Ted Hurst.
So listen, there's a lot to like on this. The offensive line is one of the best in the league when they're healthy, and that's a big when is doing the heavy lifting there, right? With Wirfs being one of the best tackles of the game. Gedeke has turned into a good tackle, like maybe not blue chip, but just below that. Mock, Bredesen, all those guys, the whole group. The one place that I don't think they're great is tight end, and that's been for a while now. I don't feel like the tight end position's been great. It was interesting hearing Baker talk about what made them good in 2024. Like, it's funny because while it's happening and, like, Grizzard's in town and things aren't going well, and obviously Baker's banged up and they have injuries everywhere, but he's not going to come out and say what the problem is. But, in retrospect, him talking about it in 2024, when they were humming, they were a mid-zone team. And as time went on, they became more of a gap scheme team. And a lot of that's because the guys up front, but I also think Bucky Irving is that type of back. And so, Zach Robinson comes in. This is the biggest hire in the division. Like, what happens in this division might very well come down to what this hire looks like 7 months from now. And I say that because last year was such a whiff. They were so predictable. The passing game looked disjointed. Baker didn't look happy. He wasn't healthy. Zach Robinson's a guy he's spent time with. I mean, they crossed over in L.A. Obviously, he's a McVay tree guy. I also think having a guy in the building that knows a division rival really well it's not for nothing. Like, he spent a year in Atlanta, knows them well, knows their personnel, the whole thing. this hire, a lot swings on this hire. And I also think, like, we talk about Bucky Irving, the Kenny Gainwell addition is going to be a big one. Kenny Gainwell really helped Pittsburgh in more ways than just handing him off the ball. Like, he's a real third down weapon. He's a receiver when he's out in the pass game. So I think this offense's ceiling is pretty high. Like, it really is. I'm not just, what is it, bias anchor? I don't have like that going on. I mean, I obviously like the Bucs, but I think pretty clear cut. Bad hire at offensive coordinator, injury problems last year offensively. I expect them to get back to being pretty good. Now, Ibuka was great, kind of cooled, as the year went on. Like, he looked like he was going to be the rookie of the year or something like that. McMillan had that huge surge in 24, man. And if he could just continue his ascension, that's a really good number 2 receiver. And Chris Godwin, veteran, stud, leader, the whole thing. So there's a lot to be excited about offensively for this group.
What about Baker's contract?
Baker's contract, I think, helps. I talked earlier about them being a desperate team. Are they going to play like a cornered animal, or are they going to play like a team that's down, right? I think they're going to play more like a cornered animal. At least I hope so. Everybody's on a 1 year, dude. It's like Baker's playing for his future. Todd Bowles is playing for his future. They signed Vita Vea. That was good news that came out. Like, but 1 year, $30 million, right? So everything is kind of like, hey, we don't want to get too out over our skis because the next year we might have a different guy evaluating the quarterback. We might want to bring in new players. The bones of this thing's pretty good, though. I mean, like, when you have an offensive line like this and you've hit on the talent outside, as they have with Ibuka and McMillan, the one thing that concerned me is, like, hey, why'd Mike Evans leave? Did Mike Evans see something coming, or was it just the emergence of the young receivers? Was he kind of like, I'm going to jump off this sinking ship? It felt like that for a minute with everything that was going on. But the more I see Ruben Bain play, the more I hear about the rookie linebacker Trotter, the more I hear about, the more I look at this offensive depth chart and say, hey, man, like, this group's pretty good. And hearing Baker at the podium, like, it was a pretty cordial fuck you. It wasn't like a, hey, I never want to play for this team anymore. It wasn't like he was holding out or holding in. Like, Baker came to work and said, hey, it fucking sucks. Like, but I also have to remember this team took a chance on me. And this is a business, and I don't blame them. Because I think they also know this, that Baker Mayfield is best when he has a chip on his shoulder, which is all the time. But if they throw an extra chip on his shoulder, he's got 2 chips on his shoulder. Mm-hmm. Now, the one that he wakes up with every morning and the one that they just put there.
He said in our interview.
He said 2 chips?
Yeah, Bo asked him about chips. He's like, yeah, 2 chips, both.
Yeah, that's him, dude.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, I last year they had a rough year. I expect them to be a little bit better this year, a lot better this year. And the defense is potentially a lot of fun. They had major issues in the middle of the field. Major issues in the middle of the field. Like, the linebacking core was like, I mean, it was they weren't even seeing the field. I mean, David was getting older, and obviously you got to treat that guy with a lot of respect, but like, it was time. And Servassier Dennis, who had some nice moments, he just doesn't see it. So you get Anzalone, who, I mean, that's a big loss for Detroit and a big win for Tampa. Trotter, too. Trotter is a guy they really like, their second-round pick, talking him up. So, like, if you've got the linebacking core taken care of, you helped out in the pass rush, right? I think the Ruben Bain thing, from what I've seen of him, he's who I thought he was going to be, which is, I think he could have 8 sacks this year, like, and that would not surprise me at all. Like, he looks like a pro-ready guy. You could argue maybe the ceiling's not as high because of his height or his arm length, but to me, he looks like a souped-up Brandon Graham. Like, and that's a good thing. So, you bring in Ashawn Robinson, who's played a lot of ball in this league, Nunez Roches. So you've got better depth with the big guys inside. Al-Quadin Muhammad from Detroit, who had a quiet double-digit season last year. going to be a rotational rusher for them. And Cansey coming back, dude. Cansey, if he can stay healthy, he is – this Vita Vea Cansey 1-2 punch is awesome. So I like the front. They, last season they went out and they thought Todd Bowles was really excited because of all the man corner play that he was going to have on his team. You go out and you draft Benjamin Morris, and he hasn't been a sure thing because of his availability. McCollum's been there. It's a big year for him. Winfield's a fucking stud. He's like one of the best in the game and just a consummate leader, professional, standard enforcer for this group. Jacob Parrish, I think he's got a chance to be a good slot corner. Might have to play outside some depending on what goes on with injuries to the corners and that sort of thing. And Keontae Scott's a guy that they like. They really like Keontae Scott. So this is a GM I trust. It's a personnel department I trust. They pick a lot of good players, man. They do. Their batting percentage is pretty high on guys, and so I'm bullish on them. I just am. And if they get hurt again, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe they have a substation near their facility, but it all comes down to Todd Bowles. The reason it won't work is Todd Bowles. Like, if you had to pick a reason that it wouldn't work, you worry about the Todd Bowles effect in this team, because at times he's been a great coach. He's been nails, but I'm hoping that some of the pressure on him might implore him to be more aggressive in situations, because at times he's been a little bit too conservative as a head coach, and everybody knows that situationally. So I'd like to see this team play like they're fucking down to their last straw. Like they're down to their last bullet, dude. This is a cornered animal is the way I want to see this team play.
Do you see who the special teams coach is? Danny Smith of gum chewing fame in Pittsburgh.
Oh, it's Danny Smith?
Danny Smith.
It's good for him to finally get to a snowbird type destination.
That's right. Yeah, 72 years of age.
That's it?
Yeah.
I mean, he has the motor of a 45-year-old, but I thought he was a little bit older. That dude's only a couple years older than my dad.
Yeah, well, your dad.
My dad's not coaching special teams in the NFL. It doesn't age you the same way. But I don't know. I think it's pretty – I mean, even bringing in Christian Roseboom, like just having some good depth, man. Like,
have you said Yaya Diaby yet?
I didn't say Yaya Diaby. He was on the show, and he's fantastic. This dude's a 50-plus pressures a year guy when he's good, and then it's a powerful group. Like they really, I mean, between Bain and him, pockets are going to be crushed. Pockets are going to look like crumpled paper bags, and I really look forward to it if they can just lock in that corner play, and everybody play well at the same time and be healthy at the same time. It's a good unit.
Everyone can just play well at the same time and be healthy at the same time.
And honestly, it's really the second thing, because most of these guys have played pretty well when they've been out there. So
Saints or Falcons?
Let's go Saints next. We'll
Shuck.
save the Falcons for last.
Shuck.
There are two teams in this division that I'm excited about: the Saints and the Bucs. And I think the Saints are no longer a hipster pick at this point to ascend this year and be tough to deal with. I think most people, although, it's kind of been, Tyler Shuck's not exactly like the sexiest play at quarterback, but when you watch him throw the ball around last year, it's pretty impressive. And like Kellen Moore likes being aggressive, and it's fun to see them, throw the ball down the field, chuck the ball down the field, and, like the deep outs, the crossers, Shuck and Kellen Moore marriage is a good one. And I think the HN or ETN, for those of you that, I got to do this for a year.
Dude.
Because there's some people that are going to be like, hey, Devon Achan's on the Dolphins. Did you know that?
The Clemson media guide when he was in college. Capital E hyphen capital T hyphen capital N. Couldn't be any clearer. ETN.
I know, now it's unclear.
Very
But I got to
unclear.
respect. It's like Zach Tom changed his name and I freaked out. I was like, who the fuck is this guy? Who's Baco Buwele, dude? I've never heard of this guy, dude.
And have we asked Trevor Etienne? Is he also going to be
That's a good question.
HN?
But I do think the HN It would help if there wasn't another pretty good running back without the name. That's the
It'd be
fucked
no
up thing.
problem.
If it was like a Josh Hines Allen and Josh Allen thing, like we get it. But
Yeah.
so, anyways, Travis Achan.
Yeah.
Really, we talked about this with the Jags earlier. Like, good getting the ball on the edge, and I think he can be the guy in this offense because Kamara is older now, and the run game wasn't as fruitful, but he can still catch the ball to the backfield. Achan on the edge. What it does is it's got second level defenders taking a picture. It's got defensive ends sorting through trash, concerned with the run game. For an offense that in Shuck's time to throw is like up there. It's like in the 2.7s, which is like one of the slowest operation times in the league. It's because they are a team that's more ambitious down the field. It really helps to have edge production in your run game. I know from experience it does slow down edge players and gives you the time to operate. Now, obviously, you need Olave healthy, who's got an injury history, and you need Tyson to be healthy, who's going to start the season hurt 2 months. Okay, so I have concerns about the wide receiver room. I do. I mean, now you got to remember Juwan Johnson. That's like, him and Shuck have a history, right? So he's a security blanket for him. He's a good receiving tight end. They bring in Fant. They've got 2 good tackles. Okay, so I just want to note that between Fuaga and Banks, they played well last year. They bring in David Edwards, who was a good player in Buffalo. They will have to replace him. McCoy and Ruiz inside. Vele, they gave up like a mid-round pick to get him from Denver. So, I think the big question is, and Tyson had the injury history, like when you already got a wide receiver with an injury history, like why do you go out and get a Tyson, which if he's healthy, he's great, right? But at this point, I'm kind of concerned with that room. That room its upside is really good, but the floor is a little bit lower because of possibility of injuries. Now we've got young guys who are unproven as depth with Bryce Lance and Barry and Brown, two rookies, man, like mid-round to late-round picks at that. So a lot rides on the health of that receiver room. And the other thing to me is, as I sat there looking at it, and I was a little less bullish after the Tyson injury, and I was like, here we go. I also was thinking about like fun pony packages that they get into with Achan and Kamara. Like those 2 guys can both catch the ball to the backfield. The other thing they did really well last year is the dump downs were really productive for this group, whether it's Juwan or a running back. Like they had a lot of rack late in downs because they do stretch the field with the concepts that Kellen Moore majors in. And so I think this has got a chance to be a really professional outfit. And when you think about the excitement around this team, you've got a quarterback who's in his physical prime. He's an adult man, and he played pretty well last year. And I think when the contract's up, the first contract, he's going to be 30. So this is the last year that they're kind of feeling that the hangover effect of the Derek Carr thing. I think they only have like $12 million cap space. It gets better and better as they go. So you are in a window. And when we get to the defense, I might talk about maybe some opportunities to upgrade on the fly this year, that sort of thing. Are they buyers? Or are they biding their time knowing that they're ahead of schedule to make a big push over the next couple of years? I think they're good enough to win the division now. I do. And it's going to be fun. And, the other thing is they got Spencer Rattler, who's played football in the NFL.
True.
And you got Zach Wilson, who
football player.
It's a football player. So you do have the devil. The devil these aren't some backup quarterbacks. They're not veteran backup quarterbacks. They got a little of the young player upside, if anything ever hit the fan with Shuck. And I thought Rattler, although he got soundly beat out for the spot, like he wasn't the worst player I'd ever seen. So, Zach Wilson can throw the ball a long way. Now we're just talking about the roster, but let's get to defense. This is a good trend. Like I always talk about the distressed asset thing, and Staley was as big a distressed asset as anybody. Like as a head coach, he failed, and a lot of it was podium stuff, and you know, obviously the X's and O's and that sort of thing. But like, people were out on this dude. And I said, you know, somebody's going to hire this guy. He's going to make him real happy. He's a Fangio tree guy. This is kind of like, it's in right now. It's so hot right now, the Fangio stuff. And he's had success as a coordinator. And, you know, in the past, you could say, well, he had this dude or that dude. Like, they had talent. This group last year, it's not a star-studded group, man.
Well,
and it's not now.
Chase Young.
Chase Young's a good player, but look around this group and you're telling me like a lot of casuals know these guys. And in the second half of the season last year, from week 10 on, they ranked second in EPA per play allowed, second in success rate, second in yards per play allowed. They were third in the league behind Houston and Seattle on third down. Third in the league on third down. Without, you know, the best rush group in the league. Like, it's a good group. Honestly, when I was talking about like going out and getting somebody, I'm talking about here a little bit. You know, I like Granderson, and I think Chase Young's a beast. He's made himself into a good player in this league. You know, you've got Cam Jordan, who's still definitely productive, and you know, it helps a lot to have a guy like that. The Christian Miller kid's exciting. He's flashed a little bit for them early, but the point is, like, who's your Batman? Like, who's going to go? And maybe it is Chase Young. You know, to be the double-digit guy. And a bigger question for me is, I like Caden Ellis and I like Pete Werner just fine, but they're not DeMario Davis. And when you talk about like a standard bearer for an organization for over a decade, a communicator, a leader, like, you're not just replacing the X's and O's. And guess what? He's still playing at a pretty high level for somebody his age at that position. Like, I'm really circling that linebacker room. And, you know, Kool-Aid McKinstry has turned into a solid player at corner. You know, Quincy Riley is the other corner. Blackman, Reed, good safety room. Sanker, UVA, good player, going to be their nickel. So, I mean, like, there's talent on this defense. I don't think it's like laden with stars or anything like that. But the reason I bring up the pass rush is I think there's always an opportunity to go get a rusher as the season goes on. If they find themselves in first place in October, and they're having to manufacture a bunch of pressure, which we all know is like, it's great, but it might not be sustainable through the year, then maybe you go get somebody. And, you know, Google will tell you available edge players via trade 2026, year of our Lord. Thibodeau is a guy that, you know, like, everybody's been talking about for eons. I think he actually was tied to New Orleans. You don't like Thibodeau.
Yeah, no, I do.
You do. I do.
Yeah,
I don't
really
understand I've never understood the vitriol for him.
Agreed.
Because he's productive.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think he's getting better. I think Josh Sweat would be a great candidate for them. I mean, Josh Sweat, he wanted to leave as soon as, and he might be in Green Bay at some point, but you know, you could take big swings with a Max Crosby. I don't think you can pay him at this juncture, but like, I think they could find some money in the couch cushions for like a Josh Sweat, even though he just signed a big deal. I don't know. I'm not the cap guy. I'm the personnel guy. Okay. So I'm looking at this and I'm just saying, hey, there might be a guy that they could go out and get that could elevate this front, because Brandon Staley did a good job last year. But again,
maybe Joey Bosa wants to play half a year.
Maybe. I would prefer, like, knowing that, like, hey, we've got a 2-3 year window with a 30-year-old quarterback on a rookie deal. Like, we might want to buy a little bit, right? And buy somebody who's going to be there for a second. So I mean, you know, 2026 free agents still available. Bosa's up there, but I don't know that there's a bunch of guys that I'd be kicking the tires on that are on the street right now. Although I will say, Unique Ngakoue, I don't know if people are allergic to him. I don't know if he has BO. He's just a fucking really productive rusher anywhere he goes, and he's had trouble finding work. I know that he's not the best run down guy, but there are some names up here. Like Derek Barnett's still on the street. I'd love to see him back in Houston. He kind of fit kind of their whole deal really well. I know Kyle Van Noy's still out there. I'm not saying these guys don't have buckets still left in them, but yeah, I would upgrade there if I could at some point, maybe on the fly. Not to say those aren't good rushers. I just think you could make that room a strength.
Scott Linehan is on this staff.
Oh, Scotty.
Senior offensive assistant.
First NFL coach I ever had. Called me in 2008, one April night, and I picked up in the bathroom stall the night before the draft. He said, we're going to draft you.
Doing cocaine?
I wasn't doing cocaine.
Okay.
Never done cocaine.
Okay, good. Me neither.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, it's a good
What do you mean
thing.
you don't know?
No, I said, well, I don't know what I said, but what do you mean?
I've never done.
Good for you.
Yeah, cool.
Fuck, are you bragging about it?
Well, I mean, you said I don't know.
Swear.
Like,
I'm zooted right now. No, I'm not. I don't do that stuff. You don't need me on uppers, bro. You don't need me on uppers, bro. Like a zone 6 is plenty, dude.
mm-hmm.
The last team, the Atlanta Falcons. Man, oh man. Stefanski's a good coach. I maintain, I don't know about him as a person. I mean, certainly like people in Cleveland, Baker hates him, like players late in his tenure in Cleveland were taking shots and that sort of thing. But maybe they forgot that like he's the guy that won a playoff game in Cleveland. His first year, he had a healthy Baker Mayfield. They go 11-5. They blow the doors off of the fucking Steelers in the playoffs. And sure, they had Nick Chubb and a great offensive line, but then he did it again in 2023. People forget that year, sandwiched in between all the bullshit. He won 11 games with 5 starting quarterbacks. Joe Flacco was the guy ultimately for them. They got throttled in the playoffs, but just to get there, man, like, and I think it would be intellectually dishonest to look at his tenure and blame him for the $230 million boulder that landed on the facility, dude. Like, I'm sorry. But, like, the math is just not mathing when you pay a guy that much guaranteed money and he's not available, and when he is, he forgot how to play football. And you're an offensive coach and you want to take all the blame for that. There's a reason he has another job. And, you know, last year I was told anytime Shador did something wrong, it was his fault. Well, I'm still waiting to see, you know, that manifest, because it looked like in the preseason kind of the same thing. So I you know, not to be reductive, and not to blame everybody's Cleveland problems on people in Cleveland, but this is a good football coach. I really do think that he's coach of the year. He's got that in his bag, in his resume. He's good in the run game. They have a weapon in Bijan Robinson that they have locked down now, and the clock starts now on not wasting his career. Now, I do think they have the bones of a team here in Atlanta. Yeah, I think I called them last year a sleeping giant because of the way the defense played at times and some of the talent they have offensively. I think they have to hit the snooze button for a year. When the alarm goes off again, they have a chance to be a playoff team. But they're a quarterback away. I would put this quarterback room in the bottom 6th of the league. I was going to say 3rd, but it might be more representative to say bottom 6th of the league. Like, it's not good. You got 2 left-handed quarterbacks with availability issues. The one guy you're trotting out right now, like, never took snaps under center in Miami. Not never, but like, he's got to do it now. They're retraining him on, you know, taking the snaps so they can access the different tracks in the run game and play action off of it. Like, listen, I'm sorry. I know you might not like doing it, but our best player is Bijan Robinson, and so we're not going to have you sitting in the gun all year. That's a big question for me, is like, obviously, who's playing quarterback and for how long for this team? And what will Michael Penix look like when he comes off another injury? And so I've got concerns about that room, as everybody else does. You got two tackles that again, we're talking about Atlanta now, but also in a year. Jake Matthews, 34 years old, had a great career, man. He's been a fixture there. He's 34. At some point, like when you look at this thing, they're close, but yeah, they might have to replace two tackles at some point here soon. Jawan Taylor's not the answer at right tackle long term, in my opinion. You'd love to see this Branch kid, Zachariah Branch, be a hit for them. They have been hunting for a number 2 wide receiver for a couple years right now. I mean, Mac Hollins was their 2 one year, with all due respect to my dog. He was the 2 for them a couple years. Now, Mooney had a great year a couple years ago, came back down to earth. I really do think that they're going to depend on this kid to come through for them. And maybe not in the immediacy, but like in a year, he's got to be the guy. Jahan Dotson, Olamide Zaccheaus, Wahoo has been a good player in this league. He's popped up on some pretty good passing offenses. Drake London, to me, is the most underrated receiver in the league. And, when you look at the receiving core around him, like, people can kind of pay extra attention to him. Now, you could argue that their number 2 receiver has been there the whole time. It's been Kyle Pitts. And he's flashed at different points in his career, enough to where they franchised him. Here's another wrinkle. They might be wise to field calls about Kyle Pitts halfway through this season. Not that they trade him to the Bucs, but a team like the Bucs that could really use a tight end, to elevate their offense. I think Kyle Pitts is a good football player that's taken a lot of shit because of the hype coming out, and who he's caught the ball from over the course of his career. And then also the way they've used him at times has been kind of funky. So that's kind of like, we'll see, is he a part of the future, or is he going to be trade bait or what? But obviously Bijan Robinson and then being spelled by Tyler Goodson and not Algier is a big difference in kind of like the ethos of this offense. And I think there's a concern to be had about, like, if we know we're not going to be that team this year, you look up halfway through the season, are we going to work Bijan Robinson like a coal miner, like he's Christian McCaffrey? I think you got to be careful. You just paid a lot of money for this guy. You want him to be there into his 30s. You want him to be that guy for you that, like, people are saying, like Derrick Henry. I know it's a totally different thing, but, like, how the fuck is this guy still so productive? This offense has some good bones. Wanye Morris is another guy popped up at tackle, right? And you drafted a 7th rounder at tackle. But, like, I think you've got decisions to make down the road at the tackle position too. So you're still looking for wide receiver number 2. Maybe he's in the building. You got a good offensive line led by a guy like Chris Lindstrom and, like fixtures like Jake Matthews. But they do have some work to do still on this roster. And the quarterback room's not great. Now, if you look at the defense, I'm really excited about some of the young players on this team. Now, the problem is some of them are unavailable. One of them, who had 10.5 sacks last year, appears to be a really bad decision maker. And he's lucky that he's even going to be out there this year. The suspension's 8 games? From what it sounded like, this was a bad deal. And I'm surprised that he didn't get a bigger suspension. But the fact remains, him and Jalen Walker, they split for 16 sacks last year. That's a pretty good rookie duo. So, like, we hit on these guys, right? Now, Jalen Walker's hurt this year, so you're going to be 8 games without James Pierce, and, Jalen Walker done for the year. Dorless was a revelation for them last year. He had a hand from the Chargers, who I like. Ebukam, who's like a kind of a versatile guy outside, but he's been a good rotational rusher throughout his career, has to play for them. But, like, if you look at their starting 4, Mason Smith, Brandon Dorless, Ebukam, or whoever's going to play in base downs for them, outside backer, Zadarius Smith off the street. Like, this is kind of a piecemeal deal. You're missing your main dudes. And if you look back last year, and I'm a big Jeff Ulbrich fan, I thought he did a fantastic job last year. This group went from second worst in sacks to I think second in the league in sack production. Second worst to second best. Pearson Walker, 16 sacks. Ebikide was good. He's gone now. They brought a lot of pressure from a lot of different looks. They definitely had to manufacture some of it, but they were able to get after the quarterback. They made some quarterbacks look really bad last year at times. You know, they had some. I mean, they made Josh Allen look bad. They made Matt Stafford look bad at times in that game. You know, there were other moments that they had where I was like, this defense could be really good in the future. I can't believe I've taken this long to bring up the safety duo of Jesse Bates and Xavier Watts. Bates is up there a little bit in years, but Xavier Watts last year was a revelation, man. That dude has superstar written all over him. And then AJ Terrell is a fixture at corner, and they bring his brother in Avion Terrell, and maybe he has to play slot, you know. But Mike Hughes was good for them. They might have to find a place for Terrell on the field, and supposedly like he plays like a linebacker. That's the way he was described. Like he's a very physical player. So again, you're buying that the Clemson distressed asset thing, right? A lot of these Clemson guys popping up on rosters this year. He was a second round pick. He's going to be there with his brother. That's a very unique situation. Sidney Brown also factors in. Sidney Brown was in Philly as well. So it's an exciting secondary. It is. Diablo was a big hit for them last year. I like Christian Harris, but I don't know where you find Ulbrich. He's got it up his sleeve, but he's going to have to dig pretty deep to find the same production and pass rush as he did last year, down two dynamic rookies. And you know, if you're expecting Brandon Dorless to do what he did last year, you know, I think there's a chance that he kind of comes back down to earth a little bit. But he's a young player, so maybe that's who he is. When you describe this group, I mean, don't they sound like they're a year away from being very good? I know you got to find the quarterback.
I'm like they're a quarterback away from being very good, and they're in a bit of a purgatory where they're going to win.
I don't know if they
games.
will. I don't know if they will.
Well, you also might not need to, because the draft where they took Penix, then went J.J. McCarthy, then went Bo Nix.
Yes.
Denver's happy that they got Bo Nix at 12 or whatever it
Yep.
was. So
It's that kind of draft.
if it's that kind of draft, you don't need to be picking 1 or 2 or 3, and even though they could be.
Now, if you know Ian Yates Cunningham, our guy, is the new head honcho down there from a personnel standpoint, and you don't want to take a swing like this in year one. But if I were on my last leg in Atlanta and I had to win now, I'd make a move for Mac Jones. Now, I don't think, you know, the nice thing about walking in a situation like this is nobody's going to hold Tua and Penix against you, especially Penix is your you know, it's drafted before it predates you being in the building. Doing something like that speeds up the clock on like a GM. But if you think you're good enough, and if you think Mac Jones is a guy that's a starting quarterback in this league, if he's got the, you know, the nice car, which he had in San Francisco, even with some injuries, I thought he played so well. You know, and guys love Mac Jones. I'm coming around on Mac Jones. I used to hate Mac Jones because he used to kick people in the dick, and he just didn't. New England Mac Jones, I just didn't like. You know, like he seemed like kind of a dirtbag to us D linemen. But everything I hear about him, and watching him play last year in San Francisco, I think he's done himself a lot of good. And I think there's probably a feeling in the league that he could be a starting quarterback for, you know, a prolonged period of time. So if you're looking at the class next year and you're saying, hey, we want to be good this year and we want to make a move, I don't know what it would take for a Mac Jones. It's probably fantasy land stuff. No GM's going to do this year one, especially with next year's quarterback draft class. But I think, you know, as a sidebar, like the Mac Jones thing, Mac Jones is probably going to get traded this year at some point. I think you'd be crazy not to if you're San Francisco. You got to get something for this guy. The block is, you know, is hot out here. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Here's a ranking of backup quarterbacks in 2026. Number 1, Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
2, Mac Jones. 3, Tua Tagovailoa. 4, Jameis Winston. 5, Fernando Mendoza. 6, Spencer Rattler. 7, Tyson Bagent. 8, Justin Fields. 9, Jarrett Stidham. 10, Anthony Richardson. 11, Davis Mills. 12, Shedeur Sanders. Some of these guys are starters. It's there's not a ton of good quarterbacks in the world.
No, there's not. No, there's not.
Very few great ones.
No, there's not. And, a lot of teams have picked quarterbacks as of late, so, those seats are taken. I think a Mac Jones is, I don't know what you get from Mac Jones. I think it's, you crazy to call and be like, it's going to take a 2 or a 3 and some change.
3?
Yeah, 3 and some change. I think 3 and another player or another late round pick. It's a nice haul if you're San Francisco.
Yeah.
So anyways, that is your NFC South. Very unpredictable. The only prediction I'll make is that Atlanta needs to hit the snooze button for a year. Just for a year. Now, Tua could hit these in-breakers and look like, I was kind of bullish on Tua looking like a player this year because you still got Bijan, you got Drake London outside and that sort of thing, but you got to be able to win quick in the middle of the field. You got to be able to affect and open up those windows so that he can hit that first read, right? And I'm not being funny. That's just the way it goes. He's not going to be able to move off the spot or scramble or, that's why I'm a little bit bearish on him being able to move the pocket or boot action off stretch. I think it's going to be a struggle just to get the footwork down in the passing game. Could be wrong, though.
Uniforms are a lot better.
The uniforms. Did I miss that?
Are a lot better. Yeah.
There's just so much going on. Show me the uniforms.
Not perfect, but they're better.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah, I remember. We got rid of the medieval-looking...
The ATLs.
That was so
drop
stupid.
Shadow, modern drop
That was
shadow.
so bad. I remember when... I think the best one's the black pants, white top.
Yep.
That's the thing of beauty. The red top's great, too. So they're going to look like a real team. There's a lot of talented players on this team. I think, another guy I didn't even mention is Billy Bowman, who is hurt right now, another young secondary player. Pencils in as a slot type guy. So they have I wouldn't call it an embarrassment of riches on defense when it comes to young players, but there's a lot of young players that can play on this defense.
Now, if we're going third to first, which is going to be this year's trend, it would be the Indianapolis Colts in the AFC South and the technically Atlanta Falcons in the NFC South.
I don't think that's happening.
I don't think so
No
either.
spoilers, but it's hard for me to foresee that. And judging by the silence after I said, do you guys have anything on Indy?
Indy's just boring.
They weren't for a minute last year.
Agreed, but it's dimes.
Yeah.
Wide receiver one's white, with respect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He fooled me for a little while until we interviewed him on the show almost. It's just the way he, he's pretty athletic.
If we had seen this clip of Indy getting after Tua earlier, we might have had something to say.
You just got to take every fucking, point stands, but you got to take every training camp under 30-second clip with a grain of salt. I've seen some ridiculous shit this week where it's just like, and here's one that drove me crazy this week. Ruben Bain working after practice, and the response by a lot of people was, this is so stupid. Why would you work after practice? You didn't get enough work in practice? I'm like, have we gotten that stupid? That, working after practice is, and I know it's not performative because there's not a performative bone in this guy's body. I watched some of the interview with Poe. He's all bald, dude.
Yeah, he's all bald.
To explain to people why you might do this stuff after practice, it's because when you're in practice, you're doing what you're supposed to do. It's a pass rush period. Maybe you haven't gotten a chance to work this drill. Maybe you haven't. And not to mention, this is a body mechanic thing that you need to rep. Like, you don't get to do this in individual. You can't say, hey, coach, I got this one drill I want to work. You're doing the individual drill that everybody's doing. So it's a chance for you to get the personalized work that maybe you're not getting in practice. But I just some of the stuff that comes out of training camp, the fodder's insane to me.
What's the most useful thing about training camp?
Conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
Conditioning. And finding out if your young players are ready to play.
Can you find that out?
I think guys have a pretty good idea.
Maybe position dependent.
Yeah, it's position dependent, but I think you can find it out. All right, so that's it for today's preview of the South. We have next week Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, at some point Amon-Ra St. Brown, Hutch, Reuben Bain. We've got freaking Will Anderson. Chris Godwin too, yeah. I wasn't there for that one. Chris Godwin, Will Anderson, Sheldon Rankins, Azeez Al-Shire. Dude, we've got a lot of camp content coming at you over the next 7 to 10 days, and then eventually here we're going to pick division winners.
Oh, does that mean you're picking Detroit, Tampa, Houston as division winners? Be careful.
I didn't say that.
Okay.
Why?
Sometimes you go to a place and you get enamored of it.
Sometimes you go to a place and you find out what you need to know.
Okay, like that. Like that a lot.
Yeah, so hey, jury's still out there. I could change all of my – I got to get through all the rookie preseason tape, which could change, a lot of things for me. But we will be picking division winners in about 2 weeks here. So hang in there. Enjoy the interviews coming up, and y'all have a great weekend.